love you almost.
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
Hi, it's Bruce.
Hey, Bruce. Thanks for calling and taking some time to chat a little bit.
You're welcome.
Hopefully you're well. I'm kind of wondering whether I should be even wearing a mask as I talk to you over the phone. I mean, geez, this thing is like out of control.
No, you don't need it over the phone, but if you go outside, you need it.
Right. So, part of the reason I wanted to get you on the line is, for starters, I mean, obviously your back catalog history with, going back to Blackjack, Billy Squire and stuff like that. But I'll probably ask you a little bit about that. But how did you get hooked up with being part of Greg Prado's book? Because I think you're prominently featured. And I've known Greg a long time, actually, because he was someone that was introduced to me by the label that helped me put out, BK3. Mm-hmm. So, in fact, I think he gave a nice quote in an Eddie trunk, and we used that. So, I've always known, him professionally, and I think he was a supporter of, my era KISS, my playing. Right. Boy, he cashed in good with that book, though. Good timing. Yeah. I'm happy that I was a part of it. Right. I'll finally get a chance to take a look at it, a little more in depth. I kind of skimmed a lot of it. But so that's Greg, and but you're right. I recognize your name. Oh yeah, I think the last time I chatted with you was like a little over a decade ago. I think because it was right before you put out BK3 and did an interview.
It might have been the same publicist that introduced me to Greg and all. Right. Rattling everybody, So
right.
So let's. What are you going to tape it and then you'll put it together?
Yeah. It's basically an audio and then we'll do like a for print type piece.
Okay.
Yeah. But so that's good. I mean, I think as far as the book, I mean, just the way he laid that out. I mean, I think it's great, and it's just fantastic to have somebody that was part of the band during that era to give a little bit of behind the scenes and additional.
But just remember, the funniest part is that everybody has their own story. I'm reading Mitch Weissman's, and I'm like, I don't remember it that way. I mean, but it's no different than reading some of Paul's book or some of the other guys. I'll see something and I'm like, that's not what I thought, but everyone has their own, it's just like, God forbid, people witness a car accident. Everybody sees something different. Right.
With that, I mean, how what was the extent of the amount of, I guess, audio that you provided to Greg for that? Because I imagine there's probably a lot of great stuff that didn't make the book.
It's been a while, and I'm sure I probably talked an hour with him, maybe two at the most. It wasn't. I'm not in it that much. I mean, I'm there, but I think he's working on something else now, a Hendrix book. Oh. I spoke to him about that too, because I had a certain relationship with being a Hendrix fan and seeing him.
Right. Okay. So, and you said you just skimmed through the book, or did you finally get a chance to properly check the whole thing out?
I think I'm going to have time to check it all out.
Now you will, right?
Even though I'm getting busy. Actually, the last few days I've been just this whole week, I've been teasing the fans with the guitar riffs and things, and I realize the reaction, and that's in some upside down way. I'm like a public service, provider. I'm an essential business, if you know what I mean. Yeah. And that gives me it gets me out of what's very, very tragic about this situation and what's so difficult, for me personally, so that if I can bring some joy and share my thing, and they're hitting me fast and furious with suggestions and everything, and I can't do them all. A lot of them I like, and I will get to them. There's some things I can't play very well from my early days in KISS. It's just the material was very different, from what I'm more comfortable playing now. But anyway, between that, things I want to do with my wife Lisa, who's so talented, we've been filming a lot. I've been prepping a lot of material to offer the fans, and then there's life in general, hunting and gathering, I call it. You know what I mean?
Right.
When you do have to go out to go get your supplies, it's not like, oh yeah, I'm going to go pick up some eggs, honey. I'll be back. After I'm done with the gym, and then I'm going to drop something up at the post office. Everything you do out there is not easy. Okay?
Right.
Life is upside down. So when you ask me, I'll get to the book, for example.
Right.
But it's really interesting, though. This whole situation has put me more to where I'd rather. I do want to do stuff like I would enjoy reading that, I know, and it wouldn't take me long either. Mm-hmm. But the point is, right now, I finally got out of the turtle mode, if you know what I mean, with my head in the shell. Oh my God, what's going on here? And I'm being hit financially, just like so many other Americans and people around the world. But I realize I have this opportunity to communicate with them. So when things, when that becomes my new norm, which is what I'm finally grooving into, some of that more fun stuff. I mean, Lisa and I really enjoy certain TV shows, and thank God I have her, because, you can't hang out with a neighbor. You really can't.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah, so it's great, like, when we do have to go to a store for some supplies, at least I can be next to her in the aisle.
Sure.
And I do see people here taking it more seriously. A few weeks ago, not,
Right.
But irregardless of all that, where are you located, by the way?
I'm in Oregon. I'm actually, we were getting snow a minute ago, but
Wow.
I'm out in the Northwest, out in Portland. I'm about 80 miles east of Portland, actually.
Okay, so it sounds kind of rural there then, so you're probably not too freaked out with people. And where I am, compared to where I grew up and lived, which is New York and L.A., where I am is much mellower, being in Las Vegas, just in the sense of population density, but still, you do have to get out there, you do have to interact with people, and all the news keeps changing and evolving, but this virus clearly is something that is not totally understood, but is very contagious, period.
Yeah.
So, like I said, some easy things have become so hard. And then, of course, my life is, I love being at home, and Lisa and I entertain ourselves very well. But it was always booked in with travel and work and setting up, trips and things to do to perform. And now my home is my stage. That's where it's got to be, So it's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
I'm still getting used to it, but I'm doing the best I can.
Sure. Just a side note, out of curiosity, I mean, what's some stuff you've been watching in terms of shows? I know you said, you and your wife have your favorite shows that you guys are kind of checking out. I mean,
it's kind of funny, and I have to get hip to the Netflix. I had Netflix for a little while a few years ago. There's a couple of shows that people keep talking about, like Tiger King. I think it's called. They just did this funny Paul Stanley picture.
I saw that.
But isn't that funny? But I don't have that yet. But I do have. First of all, we have Amazon Prime, so there's always stuff on there, right?
Yeah.
And then we've caught up with a lot of most of the original programming. That's a lot of fun. But recently, late last year, I got a couple of it was time to get a new iPad and a laptop, because the ones that I had were getting old, and they give you free Apple TV. Mm-hmm. Okay, and Apple TV has some great programming on there. There was a show about for all mankind or something. It was like a science fiction version of actually going to the moon back in the late 60s. It was a great show. And then we like The Amazing Stories, which Spielberg was involved with. Mm-hmm. Excuse me, I'm getting a little foggy. There's another show, I might need my wife's help, but there was another one that we just kind of saw all of. I'll think of it in a minute, but there's a lot of, it's so funny. It's about, and I'm not a gamer. Do you ever play video games?
Not since the kids moved out, but way back when, yeah.
But you know how big that market is, right? There's this show called Mythic Quest, and I heard some good stuff about it. I highly recommend it. It's hilarious, and it's related to a video game company, but they're all like, it's like, remember the show Office? Yeah. The Office series. It's like make that a video game operation, except the personalities are even larger and crazier. You know, it's really well done. You know,
Nice.
you know, very, very, very good. Hang on one second.
Sure.
And yeah, it's funny. People now, so easy to binge. You know, watch. You know, the shows. You know, how could you not? You know, you know, we try to minimize TV to 2 or 3 hours, not
kidding.
6. You know, stuff like that. But there are people burning through things right now.
Oh
you
yeah.
know? And then the other show to mention, which is my wife loves The Voice, and look, I'm a musician. I'm not the kind of singer. They get some really terrific entertainment on that, and the judges are great with John Legend and Blake Shelton and all, and Kelly Clarkson. They have a good, and then Nick Jonas, who the only relationship I have with him is he had a killer offering on John Varvatos for the leather jacket that Varvatos kind of gave me a discount on that I love. I wore it on the KISS Cruise and stuff like that. But that show is really entertaining, and watching, the performances, and then of course Lisa and I can critique. Oh, I think that guy's, no one's going to ding him. He's not good. Oh, they're all going to love him. You know what I mean? So we've been enjoying that, and she's so thrilled that I would watch it because that's one of her guilty pleasures when I typically travel, which of course I'm not doing. And then the other show, this is kind of interesting. There's a guy that I met who's a very famous actor-singer, but from really a lot of years ago. Peter Gallagher is the guy's name. And he's a really good actor. I sat next to him on a plane years ago going up to Toronto where a lot of things are filmed. We hit it off. He has a daughter who sings really well, and I got to meet her. This was when I was in L.A. But all of a sudden I saw in one of the entertainment news things that I get that he was part of a new show called Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist, something like that.
Oh, okay.
But it's closer. It's really kind of gay in a way, okay? Because it's closer to Glee and shows like that, where all of a sudden she hears people singing in their head, but they're not only singing, they're dancing, they're doing everything. Right. So it's a fantasy of that. And what Peter's role is, and I got to know him a little bit, and he's a really awesome guy. I really love him and his family. He is like a stroke victim, the father of the woman who has these episodes where she sees people break into song and dance. And of course, at times he breaks into song and dance because it's a fantasy thing, Right. And obviously being like a kind of a stroke victim who could barely, all he could do was like move his eyes and hit a button and type some things. Sometimes she hooked him up in the show. But that's a really entertaining show. It's fun. And like Mythic Quest, where that show is all about gaming, people who made this extreme, violent, video game. Zoe's playlist show is about just like a tech company in San Francisco that makes like, iWatch type things and different devices. So it's young and hip or whatever. So I hope the show gets picked up for another season. But, and right now it's pretty easy to entertain me, I'll be honest.
Right.
I'm not too picky.
Yeah. Well, I'd say if you definitely get into the Netflix, definitely watch that Tiger King.
Oh no, I know that's a rabbit hole to go down.
But they also have the new ZZ Top documentary on Netflix. If you're a ZZ Top fan, that's a well done piece. So
I'll check that out. I bet. And I'll need to the other thing to dig into. I was always resistant, and I didn't have the time. That CBS has really cornered, but it's like a pay thing. But for a while, I think they offer it free. Right. And that has all this. I'm a big Star Trek fan. It has the Picard show, shows all the old stuff, and then that other reboot of the Enterprise show. And I saw some of it on a plane. So I mentioned it to Lisa, and she's so sweet to me. And she's not a big sci-fi fan like I am. And she was like, "Oh, I'd watch that with you. Of course, you watched The Voice with me.
Well,
why not?"
That's a trade-off.
So there you go. I got all that to do.
Nice. And as far as with what's great, I think, is that with the Prato's book too, is the fact that between that and you doing the KISS Cruises, it's and you doing deep stuff, cuts. that you perform on the KISS Cruise. I mean, I think it's kind of gotten like a second wave of the KISS non-makeup era. I mean, because I think a lot of people are appreciating a lot of those records more since all this stuff has happened.
Oh, I feel so much more kind of attention from the fans that some of them started, of course. There were many KISS fans that started with my version of the band, just demographically, you know, it just turns out that way. And a lot of them are, you know, some of them are like really successful, you know, professionals and everything, and all walks of life, obviously. And to me, it doesn't matter if you're working at Walmart or you're a doctor, you know, if you do a good job, you got my respect, you know.
Right.
But my point being, the amount of connection that I feel from the fans has increased tremendously, and I think some of it was time. You got to remember that when I had to leave the band in '96 because it was a successful reunion tour, there's no way I could, even though, you know, Eric Singer and myself and what we were doing from Revenge into the Unplugged thing into the Carnival Souls recordings.
Right.
Everyone knew the kind of talent that existed in KISS at that point, but clearly, just like I sometimes analogy is to me in my mind was like the way Star Wars, after like no one hearing about it for maybe close to 20 years, all of a sudden it's rebooted and then everyone's into Star Wars again.
Sure.
And KISS being back in makeup with the original guys, you know, the makeup now kind of has been gone long enough that became like, oh my God, you know, and then they did a fantastic show. They always had all that material to do. They didn't have to really bother with any of the material from the non-makeup era, of course. And that carried on, and it carried on, and it carried on,
right.
Okay. But understandably, you know what I mean, I do feel that Gene and Paul, once they got over the hump of, all right, well, Peter's not happy, or we can't, you know, agree to work together. Eric Singer, do you fit in that? You know, let's go. You know, and Eric does such a terrific job. And then when Ace was kind of dropping the ball and freaking them out, it was so easy for them to just go to Tommy Thayer, who does a fantastic job as the spaceman.
Right.
And think about it, as much as, you know, I really miss being in KISS, and I think I always have played well for them and certainly fit what they want from a lead guitarist. But, you know, if I was asked to be the spaceman, well, you know, it would have been really kind of awkward for me. It was just so easy for Tommy to just step in that way. Now, a lot of fans always ask, why aren't you there? You know, and I do get why Eric Singer's there. I mean,
sure.
Besides the talent, of course, he sits behind the drums. He was only in the band for 5 years, and that was the blonde hair days. So what that he, you know, he's got a dark wig on and got the cat makeup on. Is it that much of a stretch? Listen to the way he plays and the way he sings. You know, the guy's perfect. And then, but Tommy, you know, any of the guitar player role in KISS, you're on stage in front. You know, in a way, you know, there's no way that me, Tommy, or even Ace takes up the kind of like space on stage that Gene and Paul do. You know that, but yeah, Tommy doing that was a lot more, you know, natural than having me become the spaceman, shooting rockets out of my guitar and, you know, lumbering around the stage in whatever way that is required, playing the riffs exactly like Ace, which Tommy does in some ways quite to a perfection. Okay, I was never required by Gene and Paul to you know, learn it note for note or play everything exact. I used to do my kind of, you know, estimations of it. I've always been good at that. I do that with Grand Funk too. All the signature important riffs from Mark Farner, from especially from the big songs. You know, we mostly do just the big songs. I'm definitely, you're not going to feel like I took the song and pooped on it. You know what I mean? I respected the proper leads and then made it my own. You know, and that's the kind of liberty that I took, and I would lose that obviously if I was in the spaceman outfit. You see what I mean? Right. And then, you know, in the same way that I always find it interesting when I see Tommy play my stuff, and you know, we're very good friends. You know, we've chatted about it, especially we've had a lot of time on the cruises to talk. And he was always like, "No, I never got into the Floyd Rose, the whammy bar, so I wouldn't even know what to do with that. And we do crazy nights, and I said, look, you're doing it your way, and I don't take any offense, and you don't need to copy me unless Gene and Paul said go copy me, and I'm always here for you if you want, you know what I mean?
Right.
But his style is so much closer naturally to Ace's than mine. Okay, now I kind of have I'm kind of proud of that. I think I have a unique lead guitar role in KISS, and that's why solos like from Tears Are Falling to Who Wants to Be Lonely to Unholy. To Forever even on the acoustic. That's very much me, and it's not that I haven't seen some talented people on YouTube do some decent versions of them. On occasion they're horrible, on occasion they're good, but I like that I've carved a unique road of leads and a body of work for an era of KISS that is something that's really tied to me in a big way, and that's why I'm so busy embracing it now with all this downtime from what's going on in the world.
Right. A couple of things, like let's say, for instance, I mean, how have you ever thought of, let's say you did throw on the paint and the costume, right? How would you have handled the feedback? Because I do think that there's a segment of the fan base that is just kind of like, I'm checking out, because you're basically pretending to be Ace or Peter, right? How do you think? I mean, it almost sounds to me like, in a sense, for you, it was almost kind of a relief that you weren't asked to throw any kind of makeup on, right? Because I mean, some of the fans are really brutal.
I know they are, and it would have hurt. And I know that Tommy and Eric avoid. I'm very close with Eric, even more so than Tommy, but their best medicine is just to do a great job every night and not read that stuff, I mean, I'm shocked that sometimes somebody will leave a snarky comment to me that I'm like, really? You know what I mean? What do I ask? I don't get into, first of all, I don't like anything negative on my social media, and I never do anything negative, and I won't allow anything negative. Sometimes I see them say some things, and I'm like, I'm just going to ignore that. Maybe I didn't really see it. It's never really horrible. If it is something really rude or something, I'm going to get rid of it. I mean, I've seen, obviously everybody has a voice with their, smartphone or computer or anything, so the things that people write are terrible. But yes, I was relieved. You said it. I was, even though, how could I not entertain? If they came to me and actually said, we really need you to be the lead guitar player, well, first of all, at the time when they made that change and slipped Tommy right in, I was, pretty happy with Grand Funk. I mean, it wasn't KISS, but, and then I would have been, think about it from this angle. What if I did, all right, they made me kind of like the right kind of, proposition to do it, and then I did, and then Ace wanted to be back in or something, and then I'm like, now I don't have the Grand Funk gig either. And by the way, this was the 20th year of us doing dates. I was going to say quite a body of years there. That's good tenure.
That's an incredible amount of time, because I was actually reading back the last interview I did with you, and I think at that point it had been 9 years. So it
was probably 9. Because the BK3 came out.
And
right after, we were talking before that,
So, I mean, that's incredible. As far as Grand Funk, because I definitely need to ask you about Grand Funk. I mean, who doesn't like Grand Funk, especially if you're into some of the classic rock staples? I mean, with that, I mean, has there ever been anything in terms of entertaining, doing any kind of a, I don't know, how does a band feel about, cutting a live album or a DVD or anything of that sort?
It's a fair question. I know about 3 or 4 years in, I remember Don and Mel really thought about doing it, and then we started to discuss it, and then at the time, for whatever reason, like Don kind of lost interest in pushing it, and the gigs were always coming anyway, and I think he wasn't really sure if he wanted to commit to a new product kind of thing from the current band, where what it's really all about is us entertaining the casino crowd, the festival crowd, the city center crowd, and less about a band with new material and everything. Even though we do a couple of new songs in the set. So I'm kind of sad that it happened that way.
Right.
And I think if the same thing came up a few years later than the time it was first discussed, everybody might have known each other better, and it might have worked out, or it might have been able to be done. And it didn't. And there's plenty of YouTubes out there, and I share stuff. And my other point about Grand Funk is really interesting. That first of all, we all get along, really well and play very, very well together. I'm so proud of the guys and the material, and every performance we do, we never have anything negative, and the crowds always really dig it. A lot of my KISS fans aren't that familiar with the band, or they realize that once they maybe have heard it or came to see me, how well I fit in. Even though that band, of course, predates KISS in some ways, is another band that influenced Gene and Paul. They always liked that kind of rock. I was into it, you know what I mean? Paul Stanley was at a rock and roll fantasy camp in New York when Mark Farner was a guest, and I got to know Mark through the camp. It was a little edgy at first when we met, but I told him how much I respected him and his body of work, and not to feel weird about it. And he kind of accepted that, and then he even asked me to back him when he went on Howard Stern. Yeah, isn't that interesting? We just did he went into the studio and we did closer to home. So, he needs two guitars. So, I'll play it for you, And nothing ever came up about me, and that's fine. That's not the point. I was there to support, Mark's legacy, writing that song and being the voice of that song with Grand Funk. But Paul was so excited at the camp. He came up and sang backgrounds and was on stage when Mark was on stage. You get what I mean. So it's like, but KISS fans, when they come to see me, for whatever reason, maybe they're, I'm in their town, the gigs are usually, many of them are free because they would be sponsored city festivals or whatever. And they're always like, I didn't know, I knew those songs, I didn't realize that was Grand Funk, that kind of thing. Look, I'm not the only guy that has to Google sometimes, who does that Brown-Eyed Lady song or whatever, I mean, I don't remember the name of the band, but I love the song, so I think it's Sweetwater, actually. But, and then on the other point of Grand Funk, I really let Don and Mel, and it's mostly Don, because Don's always had a great business sense, and has been very successful. I let him figure out what's comfortable for Grand Funk, and not, really try to force the issue in any way about what the band should or shouldn't do. I'm grateful to have a gig where we all get along, play well, and we continue successful every year with about the same amount of gigs, between 40 and 50 shows, which is plenty. This way I could be at home and do other things like the KISS Cruise and things like that, you see?
Yeah.
And it's far be it from me to say, hey, can't we do a record, or why don't we film a DVD? It's really got to come from him.
Sure.
First of all, business-wise, in the same way that I never really bothered Gene or Paul about, why aren't we doing this? Why couldn't we do this? Because those guys, when you're dealing with the label and the business end of things, you got to let them figure it out. I mean, I'm not saying I couldn't have, had a conversation with them about it. I know meeting Eric Carr in the beginning, and he went through The Elder into Creatures of the Night and to Lick It Up, and now all of a sudden Animalize, and there's a guitar player change again, right? And he's, kind of not too happy a bit, and I just walked into KISS, and I'm like, I'm on cloud nine, and I'm looking at Eric you know how many drummers want your gig?
Right.
Stop complaining. We're in a limousine, leaving a sold-out concert. You follow what I mean?
Yeah.
So everything's relative to people, with how they look at these things. So I think the best attitude for me with Grand Funk has always been, I've very much fell into this, very accepted of what it's going to be, and most importantly, besides it being something that I'm rewarded with financially because the gigs are great, and I'm an actual working musician playing my guitar, I really get to play the kind of style of music I love, and we all get along, and the crowds love it. So, what more does a musician need? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I'm really happy that way.
As far as the Grand Funk gig, I mean, what is the song that's in the set that you perform that always gets you going, like that you always look forward to performing?
You know, really, almost every song that we do, and I know this sounds like a softball answer, but
Right.
I do get featured with a solo. And then the one song I don't really have a solo in is one of the biggest hits the band ever had, Some Kind of Wonderful.
Ah, yeah.
Okay, you know? Although I fool around with a couple of little bluesy things at the end,
Sure.
just doing one chord to the other. But what gets me worked up the most, of course, is I remember it was about 4 or 5 years into the band, we were doing a gig on Memorial Day weekend or something, and maybe the promoter or someone at the event said something to Don, and all of a sudden Don goes like, "Bruce, you know the Star Spangled Banner?" And you know me from Alive 3,
exactly.
You know, Revenge Tour.
Yeah.
So I go like, yeah, I do. I kind of can work up something
Right.
with this. Why? Can you play it tonight? You know, and I'm like, oh boy, okay. And then it stayed in the set from then on. And then we go into a song that was one of the most, I think it was like pretty much the heavy metal trio song for Grand Funk, which is called Inside Looking Out.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually a song that the Animals did, but they did their take on it was really great. And it was very long. It's like 8 minutes or so, and it's got a lot of parts. Max Carl, the singer, plays harmonica in it. I got a long solo thing, a lot of fast riffs. I run around the stage in the middle. That's the thing that's kind of the closest to like my KISS, you know, featured song, like the way No 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 was, or in Asylum when I would do my own solo thing.
Right.
And it's just a trio, even though Tim Cash, the keyboard player, will come out towards the end and just play a little clavinet, kind of funky support. But and to hear Mel's bass just doing, you know, like single notes, and Don's drums. What a great song. I never get tired of that. It's kind of funny, too, because it's such a long song. Sometimes lately, I remember, like, we were having a couple of little minor train wrecks, nothing nobody would know that's not, like, seen the band, you know, 20 times or 50 times. And then there we are talking about it and rehearsing it at a sound check. It was hilarious. But, you know, when that song has so many different sections and nuances, and to start it off with the Star Spangled Banner, and then at the end of that, I go into a little fancy lead guitar work, and then the song starts. You know, that's obviously like the centerpiece of the. I'm not saying it's the most important thing in the set, but it is kind of like right after the, you know, there's a drum solo, and you know, it's just a big highlight, I think, and it kind of is like the peak of where we are, and then we come down with Some Kind of Wonderful, which everyone loves, and then we do Close to the Home, which is such a great song. Your Captain, Close to the Home, and then we end the set. You know, we don't even exit the stage. We just kind of thank everybody, and then Don throws the you know, kind of like American hat on, you know, the red, white, you know, hat, and then we sit down and he starts that drum beat for We're an American Band, which is a song that everybody's, so many rockers have covered it and done it, from Rob Zombie to, you know, Poison to, I think there's even a recording or a film of, at a big festival, it became a jam song with Bon Jovi and Paul Stanley and everything.
Oh, that's right,
Yeah, isn't that funny?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a unique band of hits that in many ways I always felt like Grand Funk's very underrated. But most important is what we do and that we enjoy doing it. So it's been a win-win.
Nice. As far as with your work on the KISS Cruise, I mean, and I don't know what the arrangement is, but I would imagine that would do good business off the cruise. But at the same time, I don't know if that's also probably something that if you take it out of the cruise, then it'll lose a little some of its magic, right?
Well, I mean, I can frame what you're saying in two different ways. Okay. Yeah. First of all, there's no better crowd for a deep set of, especially my era, of KISS. Even though there's some hits in there, obviously, Turn On the Night and Tears Are Falling, I'm always careful of what KISS is going to do on the cruise because there's no reason to do the same songs God Gave. There are a few that cross over. They choose some of the bigger ones, maybe a Crazy Nights. But there's so much other material for me and these guys that I play with, Zach Throne and Todd Kearns and Brent Fitz is so talented that we can do, okay, and we do. And we really did such a terrific job, really digging deep, 2 years in a row. It was fantastic. Now, that being said, you have 2,500 diehard KISS fans on that boat, right? If I go on, I've had promoters offer gigs. First of all, it's been very hard to schedule with everybody,
right,
with everyone else's other gigs. Brent and Todd being like slaves to Slash in a good way. I mean, Slash has got a great, platform of amazing material, and those guys just shine with it. You know what I mean? And actually, Todd plays bass for Slash, not guitar. With me, he's done both, but now that it's best for him to be the other guitar player and the front man, and Zach sings like incredible. So and he can play bass or guitar. He's another one of those versatile guys, and Brent actually plays sometimes bass in a band with Todd that they go off to Canada.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I've heard
he plays a lot of instruments. Yeah, Brent's very, very talented. But then take that, certainly if someone offers some gigs, could we go to some, markets that are strong to KISS and do well? We could probably do pretty well. Would it be quite the response or the excitement and the thrill of performing that kind of a set on the KISS Cruise? I don't know. You know what I mean? We haven't tested the water really, mostly because of our schedules, and we're all very happy as well if the only opportunities we get is something like a KISS Cruise or KISS Expo or something that's very relatable to bringing KISS fans together. But I have no idea what would happen legitimately to us if we tried to really go out there and tour. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it obviously now it's not even something that I can look at.
Sure.
In the past year and a half, the problem's always been just the scheduling and then seeing well, would that even make sense? Because look, a lot of the strong markets are not right here. They might be on the East Coast or overseas, and then bringing everybody to another country or to play in New York and get around and do everything. You know how expensive touring is, okay? And I would not want to, miss Grand Funk shows or ask to block and try to do stuff unless I know I can make money, because it's not fair to Grand Funk and not fair for any of us to go out there and not know if we can make any money from it. So, but the other part of the equation that's very important that I did want you to know, and I know I've talked about it before, and obviously now it's a little challenging for us to record in the same room together, even though we've done quite a bit of writing on FaceTime and stuff, is to record with these guys, because product or something like an actual EP or even more, let's say we're able to actually record more than just 3 or 4 songs, that's very doable, and that I think I'd find that same diehard KISS fans. You see what I mean? And maybe even some of the Slash fans that love Todd and Brent so much would be interested in that, because it would be featuring those guys as well. My fun name for the guys it's my name, featuring the Vegas Mob. It's spelled MOBB, members of Bruce's band.
Oh, there you go.
Which is kind of clever. And it came up so innocent, that funny name, is that when we would do a lot of group texting together, and I got tired of it being everyone's name on my devices. So then I was like, you can label, if you're constantly getting like 3 people that are going to text you, you can name it, you know what I mean? So at least on the Apple product. So I did, and then it said MOBB, and then one time even, I swear, I don't know how my iPad did it. It said Vegas Mob, and I was like freaked out, and I looked at Lisa, and I said my iPad just changes to Vegas Mob. It's too long. I'm going to get rid of the Vegas part. Yeah. But that's the perfect name for the guys. Yeah. You know what I mean?
There you go.
Bruce Kulick and the Vegas Mob. So I think someone in my little iPad, decided to get specific. Maybe they all knew they lived in Las Vegas, so they gave me a geolocation for it.
Nice.
It's kind of silly.
No.
But those guys are terrific, and we're going to do stuff, and we're looking forward to playing on the cruise later in the year if things calm down.
Right.
So hard to know what's going to happen this year.
Yeah, but I mean, I think you're onto something. I mean, cutting some original stuff.
Yeah,
I don't know. And
the reaction's been great.
Yeah, and I don't know whether that would be something reminiscent of the era, to the material that you were a part of. But I'm thinking, there's lots of cool stuff you could do with that between 3-4 songs.
Absolutely.
And then maybe 3-4 classics recut with the band or the MOBB as you refer to them. I mean, a lot of cool. You could do a lot of cool stuff with that.
Yeah, no, it's really endless, the opportunities that could happen, and believe me, I'm very focused that anything original would be stuff that we love, and that somehow there's that connection to my era of KISS in it, and that's what I find. Everything I've presented to them and everything that we've worked on original-wise really has a thread to the stuff that the KISS fans would like. So I'm so excited about that. I'm so frustrated, obviously, that it's hard to make the progress with it. But everyone's lives have taken a turn to adjust. How could you not adjust to something this extreme? You know what I mean?
We've been talking 80s stuff, classic stuff with the Grand Funk, but I got to ask you about Blackjack, because I remember picking up the Blackjack record, and it was actually at the KISS convention in Seattle from a vendor. They had the Blackjack album, and I remember, it stood out. It's shaped like a deck of cards. I mean, just the packaging for that era, it was pretty awesome. I mean, what can you give us a little bit on Blackjack?
Mm-hmm. It's funny, I still keep in touch with Michael Bolton quite a bit, and he, there was a long time when he first really became famous as the singer your mother probably loved.
Oh yeah.
And one, like there he was winning a Grammy or something. I mean, that he was kind of like, he distanced himself a lot from that past. Even though he really does love rock and roll. And he's mentioned to me quite a few times about one of the things he'd still like to do sometime is a kind of rock album, and I think he's had business people approach him about it. I'm not going to sit and stare at the phone waiting for him to ask, but he knows that I'd love to, assist him on that. And I'm sure we would connect very easily with it, because we always really enjoyed writing songs together, and we've had a few things that were covered by rappers. Kanye West did a version of a Blackjack song, and Jay-Z was another one that sampled another one, although we weren't credited, unfortunately, for it, which is a different issue altogether. But there's all those sites out there, who sampled who, you can find that kind of stuff. But Michael and I, when I backed him a little bit back in the 70s, he was popular on the East Coast, and he was kind of offered a record deal, but they didn't want him solo. They wanted it to be a band, okay? And that's how I got involved. And then Sandy Gennaro, terrific drummer, who just recently sent me a sheet music to one of our singles, which was really cool. Love Me Tonight, the first song that I co-wrote with him. And then Jimmy Hasselpuss, the amazing bass player that we found, who turned out to be he could really play jazz very well, and he wound up in a band called the Yellow Jackets. He played with Gino Vanelli. So he had like a foot in, the way John Paul Jones was much more than just what Led Zeppelin is. You know what I mean? This guy can, really step out and play. And it was a really formidable band. We did the first album with Tom Dowd. Polydor was the label. They were so into it. They spent a lot of money, full-page ads in the trades. The record comes out. We did decent, but it wasn't a gold record, okay?
Right.
And working with Tom Dowd was really fascinating to me, because I loved Eric Clapton and the Allman Brothers, and he worked with both of those. Michael had a really hard time working with him. Very hard time. And it was so frustrating, because, when the label picks a really famous producer, and you're the young band, you know what I mean? You're not going to be able to say, I don't want him, or I can't work with him. It's not going to work.
Right.
And I can't tell you all the frustrations with that we had, which was very unique. Although I do now, looking back, I got it how just Michael could never. You know, like when singers especially work with certain producers, every producer has their style, but sometimes it just doesn't click. Just like I'm sure you know people that a friend of yours might like, and you don't get along with that person.
Right.
The vibe is wrong. Okay.
Right.
So that's the way Michael was with Tom, and that was so tragic because here's this guy that the label's spending so much money on, who was so important to us, and then our lead singer is like not comfortable with him. Oh, it was fucked. Okay, to be quite honest.
Right.
And I hear it in Michael's voice on that record. He sang much more. He just sang uncomfortable. You know, there's times I play it for Lisa, and Lisa's like, "Yeah," I go, "You hear how he's not really in you know, it's just not feeling it the way late years later. I mean, he's considered one of the greatest, you know, big voices around in pop music, and there he is singing this rock stuff, but just not really comfortable.
Right.
And that I always felt like, well, it wasn't meant to be. You can't, you know, force, you know, life and figure that out. But honestly, you know, you don't want your lead singer to be uncomfortable, you know, when everyone's listening to that.
No kidding.
It was a great experience. The second record, we worked with another famous producer, Eddie Alford, okay, the guy who engineered and produced Yes, okay, and I'm a big fan of Yes. And here we are in Woodstock at a famous studio, the guy from Levon Helm from the band, okay, at his studio, which is a pretty iconic studio if you know some of that stuff upstate New York, near Woodstock, you know. And Eddie is having a really bad year, okay? He has delved into, at times during his career, into some drugs where it really affected him. So he was basically barely there because he couldn't. And we had a terrific engineer, Rob, helped out. I don't remember his last name, maybe Davis or something. And he was basically, it was us and Rob, you know. And I worked with Eddie on a couple of projects up there prior to that, and I really liked him because he's such a talented guy. But, you know, he was just going through something. And so now the band that had to prove itself the second time around that wanted to do it its way, choosing Eddie Alford, and he can't get it together. Not good, right? Yeah. And then the label guy, Ecki Schnabel, he's German, right, from Polydor, who loved the band. There's YouTubes up there somewhere where he's talking about the band riding in his limo. We're going to be big, you know, Blackjack's going to be amazing. It's going to be the biggest band, big. Because we were signed by a guy, the guy who helped us get the record deal, worked with Led Zeppelin and Bad Company. So, you know, the business people speak, right? And the business people, you know, figure, oh, this might be another huge supergroup or something, right? And I'm not saying we didn't have the talent. The timing was not great, and then we were dealt the politics of the labels, okay? Because as you can tell, all of us have gone on to be successful individually. Right. You know, Michael was so important, writing Forever with Paul Stanley for KISS. Yeah. Sandy's had gig after gig and working with people, and Haslip wound up, you know, I'm pretty sure he has a Grammy for that Yellow Jackets band, which is total fusion jazz or something, you know. So, you know, you're talking about, you know, a talented bunch of guys, and there we are, you know, dealing with the music business, and it was, the stars didn't align, shall I say, you know. The second record comes out, Ecki Schnabel, by the time it's ready to be delivered, he's fired. You know what I mean? He's the guy who signed us, you know. Usually the guy who signs you, if he's fired, you know, anyone he signed is toast, okay? Right? So there you go. And I passed going on tour with Billy Squier because I recorded Billy Squier's Tale of the Tape with Eddie Alford as well. And Billy wanted me to tour with him, and Blackjack should have gone on tour in support of the second record. It never happened because by the time I had to say no to Billy, the tour support money never came. Ecki Schnabel got fired, and then the next thing you know, Billy Squier tours, doesn't have a hit off of Tale of the Tape, makes a little bit of action though, and then of course you know what he did with the next record. Oh yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. But if I went off with Billy Squier, okay, then, and wasn't loyal to Michael and Blackjack, I don't know if I would have gotten the gig in KISS. So that's my. You never know what fate's going to bring you and what opportunity. That you have to turn down something. You never know why. Even though, may I tell you how I felt when Billy Squier was the biggest thing on radio a year later, and I'm sitting at home. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But within 6 months of that, suddenly Paul Stanley's looking for me to help them out on Animalize, and then you get what I mean.
Well,
so, that's how it goes.
It's kind of interesting. All this stuff just kind of ties back to KISS. I know you and Bolton
every day
and
of my life is about KISS.
I mean, you and Bolton and Blackjack, which Bolton then co-wrote forever. Yeah, you were talking about cutting some stuff with Billy Squier for Tale of the Tape. Yep. He opened up for KISS with Piper. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's just crazy.
No, and everything's connected. And here's another one that I should have mentioned earlier, since you brought that up. So how did I get in Grand Funk? I know you didn't ask that, but it's obvious. Okay, well, somehow Don Brewer knew me, right? And Michael Bolton, Blackjack breaks up. He goes off back to Connecticut to write songs. He's like, okay, I'm just going to write songs. I'm going to get a publishing deal. I can write. And then he realizes he can write really great pop ballads and stuff, and more accessible pop music, okay? And next thing you know, he rebrands himself as Bolton instead of Bolotin, right? And now he's putting out a record, and it's still rock, and I go on tour with him. Okay, because he needs a good guitarist. Okay, we get some time out on the road with Bob Seger. We got offered like 3 weeks. Okay, and Seger's like Bolton used to do some cover songs like Rocky Mountain Way and stuff that we used to do in the clubs. And then the next thing I know, the Seger people are like, all right, you got one original album and you got some covers. That's not going to cut it for us. What else can you do that's original? And Michael and I'm not in the band. It's Michael Bolton opening for Seger, right? But we're like, let's do some Blackjack songs. Next thing you know, we add Blackjack songs into the set, and Seger's happy, and everybody's kumbaya. We're hanging out with those guys. I'm still very close with Mark Chatfield, the guitar player. In fact, he lives here in Las Vegas and was one of my big connections to getting me settled here. And the next thing I know, I'm not saying I got real close to Brewer, but we all knew each other, right? And Brewer and his wife, Sonny, I'm always on the, kind of short list when they were putting together this Grand Funk Railroad Point 2. You know what I mean? Yeah. So there's that connection, once again, from the Michael Bolton connection. And it's all convoluted like that. That's the way musicians' careers are. And that's why, I'm always trying to be, there's lots of times I do have to say no to something, but I never say no as in like F you, no. It's like, I'm sorry, I can't be involved right now. And then in the ones that I am involved, from small to big, if my name is connected to it, I want to do the best I can because I want that reputation attached to me. And that's the way I've carried on with my career. And it's done quite well for me. And hence my enthusiasm to embrace my fans. I could easily turn that upside down and be like, no, I'm not going to play. No. You know what I mean? I'm going to hide in my room, But no, I realize that this makes them feel better, and that makes me feel better, that they have that much interest. And there's something in business that people say called goodwill. So I'm going to look at it as like when we all get through this, and we will get through this, as horrible as it's been. I'm hoping those fans recognize that I was there for them because, in my mind, they're helping me as much as I obviously seem to be helping them.
Right. Going to another cool thing that you were a part of, I know Karabi just left the Dead Daisies. and he's out he's been doing acoustic stuff for a while and doing solo stuff, but, I know you often get asked, as does he, about firing up Union, if nothing else, for doing a record or an EP or something, right?
And that can always happen in the future. A lot of people have interest in that as well. And John and I played together at an expo last year. We did. It's funny, we couldn't rehearse, and I know the promoter really wanted us to do like an hour. So I said, John, we only got to play like kind of 4 or 5 songs here. Just study these again. It's not that hard for us to remember it. And I have my angel wife who will sing the other half of the set with me. So you're off the hook, because he was freaking out. There was no way that we could present an hour, So we've done that, obviously. And John and I, it was kind of really funny. That actual event in Indy got us closer again, because there was a while where he was real busy. I mean, I did see Dead Daisies on one of the cruises, and we got to hang out a bit. It was fun, and I knew he wasn't happy, and I knew that was going to end for him. And the guy that he travels with when he does all those solo gigs in Europe and everything, go for 2 months at a time, a one-man band. He's so entertaining. He's got such an amazing voice. He's got a wealth of material to cover. I'm so happy for him that he can do that, and I'm sure we'll pick it up. I mean, a lot of people bring that up, and I have no aversion to it. I obviously really have always been proud of what John and I created with Union, and if we get a chance to do more in the future, I welcome that. Absolutely.
Man, those records are fantastic.
Well, thank
I'm
you.
a huge fan of those. I also always refer back to Do Your Own Thing. That thing is crushing. I mean,
it's a heavy song.
Wow.
I know. I give some lessons to people. I never advertise it, but I've given guitar lessons, and one of my guys, he's a really talented guitar player. This guy Chris, he actually became, since he's his own kind of artist and he writes songs and everything. So I've kind of been through my lessons with him. I'm actually like kind of helping him form and shape the songs, and he's aware of Union. He's a big enough fan of mine, but he wasn't that clear about that album, The Blue Room. He only knew the first one. Okay, the song you mentioned is from The Blue Room.
Right.
And I remember the last time we were looking at this new song that he had that had a lot of potential. I'm like, a lot of the examples I was using was from things from The Blue Room. So I said, you got to study this album here, and I played him that song, and I was showing, there was a reason in our session, to make a point of that, about what the riff did and how it moved into the next section and all. And through those kind of like concepts that I have of songwriting, I'm helping him shape a better record, which feels great. I mean, it's one thing to show people riffs and everything and how to proper technique on a guitar, but I really do enjoy the lessons with this guy because of the fact that he's very talented. But songwriting and arranging and presenting material, that's really complex in many ways. You know that, and to do that in a virtual way is kind of fun. But that album, it reminded me of how powerful The Blue Room is, and what's funny is that Lisa knows The Blue Room better than she knows the first album. I had to go like, you sure you don't know October Morning Wind?
Oh, that's an awesome
I just
tune.
knew The Blue Room, you know what I mean?
Right.
So, but thank you. I mean, both those records will stand the test of time. I always felt like my solo records will stand the test of time, and that's why it's so important. If you record something, do the best you can, so that when you release it, people can enjoy it forever.
And out of curiosity, I mean, because you guys also did put out a live album. It's pretty cool stuff because you balanced all sorts of stuff. Union original stuff, some KISS stuff, some MOBB 94.
There was a couple of acoustic things that was needed for it as part of that deal. The one frustration I have that I don't mind putting out there, even though it's kind of on the business end of things, is that I have no rights to the Union stuff. And it doesn't mean that at some point the label that controls it would make it a little more readily available to maybe do vinyl or maybe, explore the catalog or maybe revisit it or add something. All that can be like discussed, because most of the people that are involved with actually on the business end of it who own it, they're fans of mine, and they like me. But it's really funny how many times I've had some business propositions about can you do this? Can we do a vinyl release? I'm like, I don't own it.
Right.
And that's probably why at the time I walked into that, it was oversight. To look back now and say, like, well, why did we sign a contract like that? It's kind of like, how can you do that? Mm-hmm. But the fact is, my solo records, I made sure I funded, and I'll be damn sure anything moving forward with my MOBB band, that I would not let anyone control it more than I could handle, if you know what I mean, or be comfortable with, learning that. But I'm hoping in the future, that I'd be able to offer some more that union product in different ways that would make sense for everybody, and some new things too that could be worked on. Brent and I were just on a fun show, Coffee Talk with Stefan Adika, which was a lot of fun. Some new thing that a lot of people. Mark Slaughter was on, Karabi was on, Fred Corey. This guy just is going out of his mind with this. He's a realtor, but he's also a dear friend of Eric Singer and myself, bass player. And I got involved early on watching the show, and then I said, I'll be a guest, sure, and Doc McGee went on it. And it was so funny, he brought, I didn't realize it that he would, but he brought Brent on and John on. He's like, come on, I want a reunion. And he started the whole dialogue going, and I was like, okay, I get it. All right. And Brent was just sitting there with that face because he's in my cruise band, you know what I mean?
Right.
So, and John's busy, with the vape thing because he can't help it, I really wonder how everyone's handling everything, I do, reach out to a lot of my friends, but this has been such a upside down world that we've suddenly walked into.
Do you keep in touch with Jamie from Union at all?
And Jamie and I have written each other on Facebook a few times. And it's funny that he was in touch with Stefan, the guy from that Coffee Talk show, like that week, and actually said, yeah, maybe I'll pop on, but it didn't happen, but and I think Stefan said that he might be in Hawaii or something like that. Wow. Brilliant bass player, really talented guy. He's very, to me, he's very eccentric and a bit eclectic. He's a very unique character. John understood him a little better than me, and he always looked up to me as like an older brother or something, because I had to handle a lot of the business with the band. But Jamie was just a super talented guy. So, but where he's at right now, exactly, I'm not sure.
Right.
What's going on?
Oh man.
Brent, of course, I'm very close with, and I work with, and John and I have had a lot of contact. Sure.
Real quick, just last thing on Union, but as far as that live record, the Live at the Galaxy, I mean, did you have to do very much tweaking to that in terms of any touch-ups or anything like that? Not
really, no. In fact, there's feedback on the record and stuff. What happened was Cinderella, and we got to do a couple of dates that were kind of fun like that at a pretty decent venue in Orange County, which was at that Galaxy place.
Yeah.
Cinderella was going to be recorded, so we got that opportunity where it was like, hey, can you record us? We didn't get much of a sound check, so there was some problems. So the only things that we might have fixed was like if there was some technical things. But, Union was a band that, we could pull it off with a plug and play, if you know what I'm talking about.
Right.
Brent's terrific, and Jamie, I told you how amazing he is, and then for John and I, just plug into some big Marshall amps and go, But that record is pretty much as it was. It wasn't exactly looked over fine-tooth comb like an Alive 3, 2, or 1. And on the record, Alive 3 wasn't fooled around too much with at all, because we were pretty much in a good groove. We did have to fix some audience things and some sonics of it, but it was a really solid record. And that's another fantasy of mine, is that I could do with my band, like an Alive 3 set. I would do that in a heartbeat, because I love playing some of the old KISS stuff, too, that is not, just my era. To me, I'm connected to Juice. I'm connected to, Watching You and stuff like that. So I love that record.
Right. Nice. Well, I'm getting ready to cut you loose because you've been great as far as time, and I'm sure
I've
you
been
got
blabbing up a storm.
Yeah,
I gave you some good new stuff too, there, my friend.
Yeah, no kidding. Lots of cool stuff. So I guess just so we can conserve time, I think the one thing that I want to do is fire off the studio albums that you were featured on, as far as with KISS. You know, starting with Asylum and working our way through Carnival of Souls. But if you can select a tune off of each of those records that you would say is what you would consider a highlight of your play,
right?
Is starting with Asylum.
Right. Well, really, I'll always say kind of Tears Are Falling, but it's a song that KISS has been playing sometimes, and that's why people go nuts when I do Who Wants to Be Lonely, and then when we've been doing All Night, you know, it's basically the video songs, you know, video singles, you know. And all three of those songs just blow me away. But then again, we killed it when my band did King of the Mountain. You know what I mean?
Right,
so it's really a powerful record. Yeah. There's so much I'm proud of on that record. And I didn't even mention Trial by Fire. Which
that's my favorite. That's my favorite.
Thank you. You know, and I remember writing that on a 4-track. I had all the chords and everything, and presenting it to Gene, and Gene jumped right in you know, and he was so comfortable with it. And he actually changed the title. We had a different title at first, but then it turned into Trial by Fire. And I think it was Live Fast, Die Young or something like that, ironically enough. Wow. But anyway, a lot of good stuff on Asylum. Although it was an era where they were both producing the hell out of me and trying to make my lead playing almost impossible, okay? You know, and that's why some of that stuff I'm frightened of, because we were punching in a lot, and the more, you know, hammer-on whammy bar tricks I could do, the better. But I was like, you know, when I look back at it now, all these years, crazy. And
Crazy Nights, because I think that's when you guys brought in Ron Nevison, and keyboard-heavy record, but I still like that record. Yeah. What about that?
Yeah, no, there's a lot of great stuff. Yeah, the keyboards is mixed in there, and Ron had his vision, and he was he was like King Midas of the radio at the time, you know, songs with Hart and Ozzy and everything. Paul was really happy with him. Gene was petrified. It was so funny. But there's enough. I thought there was a good balance. I mean, for a guy who was like a kind of pop rock looking kind of producer to do No No No, for example. Right. But he made a glaring error. We should have done Sword and Stone. He should have. Yeah, but the song Crazy Nights, I still love doing that song. What a fantastic title. Adam Mitchell, who I'm still friends with, co-wrote that with Paul. I have a copy of the demo, and the demo has a great enthusiasm too, but what a terrific song. It's the one song that Brian May really knows, so I love it, okay? Nice. Because Brian keeps in touch with Eric a lot, and that means I'm his KISS guitar player for Brian May. See what I mean?
Yeah, no kidding.
That's the only KISS song he really knew. Well, it was a huge hit in England, you know.
Yeah, that record was big over there.
Songs, right? Yeah. You know? But Crazy Nights is a record I'm real proud of, absolutely.
Oh, man. I love the title track, but I also enjoy Turn on the Night. Now, I'd be curious to hear...
that people go nuts with that.
Yeah, I'd like to hear that one without the keyboards. It's more guitar-oriented.
Yeah, when we do it, it's heavy. Absolutely.
Oh, man.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Yep. What about Hot in the Shade? Again, that's got some... My favorite moments on there is definitely Rise to It, and then your co-write Boomerang, But I don't know what your...
Oh, that's funny you mentioned Boomerang. That was me, very manic high one day, literally. I occasionally smoked, did pot back then, and I was like, I don't know where it came from.
Right.
I was out of my mind. I know Paul hates that song. Whatever, it was fun. You know, Eric Hart loved playing double bass drums. Why not, you know? The Little Caesar I really loved on that album, and you know, I know I'm going to have to explore that album a little more with the guys, the next cruise, or gigs like that, because there's some songs we didn't get to, but and I think Hide Your Heart is a classic hit. I'm going to feature snippets of that, and of course Forever. Those are some of the things that I fooled around with for some of my isolated riffs, which is what I've been doing to feed my fans on the pandemic. There you go.
Yeah. Hey, real quick
on record and a lot of songs.
Right. Now, real quick on that, on Hot in the Shade, just some inside info. I mean, did you guys know that Ace was also going to cover that on his record?
I think that Paul and we discussed that Bonnie Raitt looked at it, Ace did. It didn't matter. You know, to Paul it was like, this is my song. And I actually think he had that song a little earlier, but we brought it in. You know, chronologically, I can't quite figure that out, but I'm glad he did. It's a great song.
Yeah. And then we got Revenge. You got to work with Bob Ezrin, and what's your highlight on that? There's, in my opinion, there's a bunch of nice, crunchy riffs on that one.
Man, I mean, I'd love to do a set of just the entire Revenge record, you know. I mean, God Gave Rock and Roll is such an anthem. That's the anthem from my era, you know. And what a terrific production, what sounds, and the quality of musicianship and just the sonics on that record blow me away. You know, I think from Unholy, The Pace, and Dominoes, you got these two right away powerful songs from Gene. Spit is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Playing that was like, wow, that's definitely one I got to fool around with the snippets that I'll give the fans. But even like something like Paralyzed, the medley I put together for the you know cruise set was crazy. I Just Wanna, terrific stuff. And I contributed Tough Love. That was my only co-write, but I think it was really an important song for that record, and had a great riff and vibe. Heart of Chrome, love that. I fooled around with that recently to share with the social media. Just a great, and then Car Jam. I mean, come on!
Right.
I mean, and that was taking that old breakout riffs, and that was only done really if Eric didn't tragically pass away and everything. That wouldn't have been looked at. But what an important kind of bookend to this body of work for Revenge. What a great record!
Right. As far as Revenge, though, I mean, was there very much stuff left over that was cut or
One
demoed?
song.
Okay.
One song.
Okay.
And I have a great version of it.
Oh,
and
nice.
for $1 million, I will give it to you.
Oh, wow.
There's a song that he wrote with Snake Sabo from Skid Row called Do You Want to Touch Me Now? And Eric Singer and myself, we talk about that song every year.
No kidding.
Because I have a full-blown production of it. I gave it to Tommy when they were putting the KISS box set together.
Right.
You know? Because Ezrin always gave me rough mixes and things, and he said, I know you're going to archive everything, so here, take the DAT tape, take this, save it, archive it. You know, and the guys, Gene and Paul, know I would never do anything nefarious with anything, because I respect them and respect the body of work. But I have this unbelievable version of that song, and the closest anyone outside of my house and only very dear friends have ever gotten to it is just me playing it on my iPhone. You know what I mean?
Wow.
So, and I really was a little surprised that we didn't finish it. It was such a great song, but Paul and Ezrin were just never happy with the melody ideas they had for it, but it's a smoking track. You know?
Now is that something you'd consider revisiting with the MOBB?
Well, that's not a bad idea. I would certainly throw it up in the air and see what would happen. But technically, when it's a song that's not released, you usually need the writer's permission. Is what I understand the business end of that is. So, although I'm, have a great relationship with Paul, of course, and the Skid Row people are always great. But I don't know. Wow. It's so funny that you mentioned it, and it's the only one that I know of. Now, whenever we do a record, like Gene would have written 20 more things, but they didn't get, looked at. Okay?
Right. Well, that's why he put out that box set.
Yes, exactly, the vault. And there's things there that I did with him also in the later years of my time in the band that he didn't get to, and he knew that. But the vault was massive enough anyway, as you know. I don't have to remind you.
Right.
What an extensive... he made me hear a little bit of every song. I wanted to kill him, okay? But it was a lot of fun. He calls me up one day, what are you doing? I'm like, I got one appointment, and then I'm free. Okay, come to my house. And I'm like, what? Even one of those kind of things. Very cryptic. And I'm like, hamina. You know what I mean?
You're right.
And it's so funny. I call Eric right away. I go like, what's up with Gene? He goes like, don't worry. He wants to play you all the material from something he's going to release. I'm leaving right now. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh, thanks for the tip. So then I get there, and it was great to see him, and it was great. It was a trip down memory lane with Gene. I haven't told that story much, how it was to be with him for the vault story, because basically he knows I was involved with like maybe 6, 9, 10 things, maybe as a writer on all of them, maybe just playing on them. So he needed to know. So he needed me.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't need me to hear the material before I knew him or worked with him, but he still wanted to show me the evolution of everything that he had for the vault. So it was pretty fascinating. But when was the last time somebody gave you like a sneak preview of a project that has 119 songs or something, right?
Yeah, that's crazy.
So I was there for hours. I remember Shannon checking in on him to see if he was still breathing, you know. And then in the end, I remember there's like 9 tracks that I'm involved with, but maybe writing only 6 or 7. I'm not really, you know, clear on it, you know. But it was a fun afternoon, but it was like really funny. After not really being at his house for quite a few years, and then suddenly I'm there, you know, examining every song at the vault. You know, a lot of fun. It was pretty wild.
And then Carnival of Souls, which again that has Jungle, which you co-wrote. I think that's for me that's the highlight of the record, and you also performed that with Union, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah, we always did that, and I love that song. I even do it sometimes in clinics now because I was smart enough to grab a copy of that without, you know, all the lead parts on it, and I Walk Alone's another highlight for me. I think Rain is an amazing song from Paul. I love his ballad, I Will Be There. Hate obviously set the pace.
Right.
Childhood's End is really cool. You know, that record, a lot of fans go crazy over, and I know not a favorite of Paul Stanley's, but that's okay.
Right.
And I know, in my opinion, it could be sonically EQ'd better. When we mixed it, Toby Wright, the co-producer, had a point of view, but the band was also, Gene and Paul already let the cat out of the bag that they were going to do the reunion tour.
Right.
And Gene and Toby were not that comfortable in the studio, and Paul was like, you know, thinking about his boots, you know what I mean, for the tour, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I don't blame them. How could they were walking into something potentially huge, which was absolutely right, which was the reunion tour, and even the start of Carnival Souls was herky-jerky. We were working on material, locking down a producer, getting ready to record, and this is a fascinating story. It's like, I don't know that after Unplugged in August that everybody was all over them to go do a reunion tour. Now it's November, why aren't we recording?
Right.
And me calling up Gene and saying, Gene, when are we recording? We have all the songs.
Yeah.
I'll get back to you, you know. And then within, you know, that afternoon or something, a few hours later, all right, we're starting at Music Grinder, you know, we're starting, and he gave me dates. And I'm like, I had to remind him to go in the studio to record Carnival of Souls. Now, you understand, I don't know that they're negotiating with Ace and Peter. I don't know that promoters are offering them an incredible opportunity to make a tremendous amount of money and fill stadiums, not only arenas, okay? So, but if I don't know that, you can understand that behavior being really odd to me, right? And then there we are in the studio. And then they would go off at times and disappear, make phone calls. Now, they're always very successful with business and always talking business, and their business is their business. So I didn't always get very suspect to that. But it was kind of funny. By the time it was discussed with, you know, Eric and I, and then looking back and seeing all the stress or some of the like kind of politics that were happening at Unplugged with Ace and Peter, and they didn't come to a rehearsal, and so you see what I mean? That it's so funny how it's easy when you really know when the veil is revealed, right? When suddenly you know what's going on. Some of the behaviors of people and some of the events that you just witnessed that didn't totally make sense, but you couldn't figure it out, or you can't add up all the oddities, all of a sudden become very obvious and justifiable in a way, as much as it was, of course, unfortunate, you know, for the version of the band that recorded Carnival Souls, you know. But not unfortunate for the KISS legacy and KISS moving on and KISS becoming, you know, huge again, which has always shined on me anyway. So even though it was hard for Eric Singer and myself, I stayed the course, and I was very relieved when Carnival Souls came out, just to get back to that. But it is prophetic that the only song I ever sang in the band was "I Walk Alone." You know what I mean?
Right.
That was a pretty prophetic bookend to my career with them. But to me, every year that they've been out there, I've been, in some way, I'm part of this tremendous KISS family and this incredible legacy of a band, and that's why I welcome it. And sometimes it's hard to navigate. Why wouldn't it be? But technically, this pandemic is harder to navigate. Okay.
Yeah. No kidding.
It's put a lot of things in perspective, right? Because there are always, everybody's life is filled with sometimes, just complicated things in relationships and jobs and people and stress and health and everything. And now we have something that's even bigger than that, So it's really been mind-boggling. But that's why I laugh back and I talk to Lisa about it sometimes, how... remember when I was really stressed about the cruise? Are they going to want me to play acoustic or, whatever it was, you know what I mean? And you look back at that and go like, that was stressful? What? I don't even know if I could find any paper products today, what I'm saying?
That's true. That's true.
Do you think they'll have any turkey meat for us, honey?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like, oh my God, don't touch anything without your gloves, So it's put everything in perspective. But I really want to thank you for your great questions today. This was, I think you got a body of work there. We talked about it live today, so you know about that.
Yeah.
And hopefully you'll get picked up by a lot of people. I gave you a lot of good kind of my 2 cents of life in general here.
Yeah, fantastic. Just ask you one last thing. You should be able to tear through this one fairly quick.
Okay.
You and the MOBB get asked to do a TV appearance on a late night talk show, and you're asked to perform 3 songs. What 3 songs do you perform?
Well, I'd love one of those to be an original song that we put together, okay? And then the other 2, I'd probably go with some of the strongest kind of stuff from my era that the band, that KISS never played. Let's say like Who Wants to Be Lonely. We certainly could jump into another, maybe something heavy from Revenge that the band never did. It could be, I don't know, it could be Heart of Chrome or, I don't know, Spit, do a medley, you know what I mean, like we've done on the cruise. It wouldn't be hard, and actually there's too many choices to even know, but I'd want it to be something, that KISS doesn't do really, because that would make it more fun. You saw the reaction of Sword and Stone with that band. And I'd like to record that, actually. I'm a co-writer on it. I'm real proud of it, and I know Todd and the guys would do a great version with it. So,
wow.
That would be fun. So there you go. So go get me a booking, okay?
Yeah, there we go.
Do that, right?
Hey, thank you for your time, Bruce.
No problem.
I know you got other stuff to tend to, and thanks for carving out some time to chat, and we'll get this. Like you said, we got lots of material to work with.
Yeah, you got lots to work with.
Yeah.
I'm sure some people might like some of the sound bites in there. Just don't distort any of it. I gave you good stuff, but
no.
I hate when those I forget what you call that. With it, just someone puts up something and you read the article and it really doesn't even relate to the one.
Yeah, like the clickbait headline.
Yeah, clickbait. That's what it is. I really despise that because there's enough, like fun stuff that I'm talking about that should be something that a KISS fan would want to read without twisting it around. And I always find the clickbait. There's plenty of good stuff out there.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks again. You be safe. Okay?
Yeah. You too. Thank you.
Take care of yourself up there in Oregon.
Yeah.
And you can always mail me some, CBD products.
There you go. Yeah.
I don't even know if that's legal.
Yeah, I don't know if it's legal, but you're right. We definitely have lots of that.
Your state's real free with that.
Yeah.
All right, dude.
Yeah.
Be
take
well.
care.
Okay,
you
thanks
too.
again. Bye. Bye. Bye.